Hello, welcome to everyone. This is Dr. Mahesh M. Onjeri, Assistant Professor from Department of Management Studies, SDM College of Engineering and Technology, Dharwad. Okay, so in this session, we are going to continue with the Unit 1, Chapter 1, Introduction to the World of Marketing. So this is part 3 of the total videos in Chapter 1. So let me quickly take a recap of what we have discussed in the previous two sessions. Okay, in last two sessions, we have learned various concepts related to retailing management. So in chapter 1, introduction to the world of retailing, we have learned about the retail management decision process, the definitions of retailing, and we understood who is a retailer, examples of retailers, distribution channel and place of retailer, how retailers add value or role of retailers, types of jobs in retailing. After which we had an illustration of retail mix elements of Big Bazaar. So quickly I'll go through location strategy, assortment strategy, pricing strategy, communication strategy, store design and display, and customer service. So after this, in today's session, we are going to have something very interesting, so which I will reveal right now. So he is Mr. Kishore Biyani. He is referred to as the father of modern retail in India. So let's know a little bit more about him. Kishore Biyani is the founder and chief executive officer of Future Group. So Future Group is one of India's biggest brick and mortar retailers. When I say big brick and mortar means store-based retailers. According to Forbes magazine, he had a net worth of 1.78 billion US dollars in 2019. So Future Group means what? So most of us might have been visiting to these stores without the knowledge that these all stores belong to Future Group. So first among them is Big Bazaar, FBB, Central, Nilgiris, all the plus size store it is, Easy Day, Heritage Fresh, WH Smith, Brand Factory, 11, and a new model called Aadhaar. So these all store formats belong to Future Group. So in this session, we are going to listen or view to the interview of Kishore Biyani by Bloomberg Quint TV channel. So during the Retail Leadership Summit of 2019, and the theme of the summit was customer experience, key to mind share and market share. So believe me, dear students, so this is one of the most exciting interviews, not definitely boring. It is quite interactive, humorous. At the same time, you hear to a leader speaking. So listen to it carefully, after which we are going to have an interaction.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I hope you're having a really great day here at the Retail Leadership Summit. I'm delighted myself to be in conversation with Mr. Biyani, mostly because every time I've interviewed him, it's been combative. And so I'm looking forward to yet another interesting, insightful, and combative session. And I hope you will join me in putting some hard, tough questions to him about his vision for retail. Mr. Biyani, thank you very much for your time, and good morning.
Great, good morning.
Okay.
On a combative day, sir.
Yeah, well. My first question is an easy one, simple, sort of open-ended. The theme of this conference is about, customer initiatives. The theme of this conversation is about thinking differently. It's something that you have always claimed to do, and as we watch from the outside, we often wonder what is the method to this madness, right? So let me ask you an open-ended, simple question about how you define innovation in retail. What have been some of your most successful, innovative bets? And where do you think you might have not had as much success as you had anticipated?
I think business has been like climbing steps. And when I started business, it was about ignorance. I didn't know much about the business per se as such. And I think when the journey of business starts, you start looking at things differently. And I think today's business is managing at the speed of change, because the change is upon us, and we have to forecast a change and do a scenario planning and keep on readying yourself to survive in a way and to win in the market. I think for me, innovation is being part of the new whatever is happening and make that change happen ourselves. So for us, consumer is I think we say retail is our religion, consumer is our God, and store are our temples. So the way consumer wants things to be delivered to him, I think we have to deliver it to him. And before he expects any changes, we have to make that change happen and be part of everything what the consumer wants. So we are in 3 categories of business majorly: food, fashion, and home. And we have to deliver it to the consumers. So what we have done, I think, unique is we are the only probably company in the world which manages a value chain which is far higher than anybody else. If you look at our fashion value chain, we manage a value chain of 60-65% because we make our own fabric, our own garments, have our own supply chain, have our own brands, have our own distribution in form of retail, and now we have data of the consumers. So it's an entire value chain which we manage. If you look at our food value chain, currently we're managing a value chain of around 32-33%. As we go forward, I think we'll manage a value chain of 45%. Probably that will be the highest in the world. And again, our own factories, 40 of them, our own brands, our own distribution, and our own multiple formats to sell our products from, and managing a value chain which is quite large. Similarly in home, and we believe now with the data which we have, how can we have deeper engagement with our customers and sell them financial products, sell them other products, and make a deeper relationship with him and sell much more to him than what we are selling today.
When you talk about managing a value chain that ranges from, let's say, 30% to 60-70% in some categories, is that not a diminishment of bandwidth focused entirely on the customer-facing aspects of this? I know private labels is a big phenomenon with many of the large, both big box retailers and large e-commerce players.
You're talking of a very old economy, private labels. I think we build brands and consumer decides what to buy. And I think consumer decides everything. We are nobody to brand a particular thing the way it is. I think consumers believe anything which is branded is branded. There's nothing such as a label, because our brands are sold everywhere else. It's not only sold in one format, it is sold in multiple formats.
So how do you decide? How do you decide?
So we are a FMCG company having our own distribution, having our own retail and data on our customers.
So you're an FMCG company with a retail.
I'm a consumer goods company having our own distribution.
So you're not a retail company with your own supply chain. You're an FMCG
long time
company.
Like I said, I'm a consumer goods company.
You're a consumer goods company. How do you decide in specific categories, especially the ones that are most dear to you, such as food or fashion, which products you want to be able to extend the value chain all the way back to a full 100%?
In food and fashion, we are extending it fully. In fashion, we have extended.
In all product categories in food and fashion.
I think in food, we will touch 70% of what we sell. In fashion, in many formats, we have touched 100%. And except in Central and Bend factory, where we are around 40 to 50%. I think our whole idea is to sell what
what is the specific benefit of a strategy of this nature as opposed to being a pure play retailer?
You are in control of your own destiny.
So you are no longer reliant on brands from outside?
I think nobody else helps you to do anything.
So are you suggesting that this is going to be the model of the future?
I think this is our model.
And the future is now?
I think everybody will ape this model.
Okay, I'm going to come to the financial aspects of this model in just a bit. But when you said that it's part of your strategy to be ahead of what consumers want, I'm going to challenge that a little bit. If you want to be ahead of what consumers want, what in heavens has taken you so long to get onto the e-commerce bandwagon?
I think e-commerce is an idea which is a very old economy idea again. So let me tell you what is e-commerce, the way I've understood it. I think anybody can challenge me on that. E-commerce is first is acquiring a customer. Then is discovery or doing a commerce with him, and then is doing fulfillment with him. I think that's the journey of e-commerce. So the cost of acquiring a customer in e-commerce is 11 to 20%. The cost of discovery and doing a transaction is another 8 to 10%, and cost of fulfillment is another 11 to 20%. I believe this model doesn't work, especially in a country like India, where 30% of fulfillment is returned back, and the margin on which you operate is very, very low. So our model of acquiring a customer is where the customer pays to us to become a member. Our discovery model is virtually zero cost, and our fulfillment is probably the lowest cost because we'll have small stores within 2 kilometers of every consumer. So I think we are creating a model which is low cost on operating side and managing a value chain which is far, far higher.
So, okay, there are 2 follow-up questions here then. You could have looked at e-commerce simply as an effort to be making your brands and goods available online. You've been very behind the curve in just simply the platform creation. So that's one thing.
I believe it's all about using technology to do business. Let the consumer decide which.
But you haven't been doing that as yet online.
But it's too expensive. I don't have that balance sheet to lose money.
You have the balance sheet to do the 100% value chain for your products.
But that's much better because that is the winner. That is the winning idea. It's not a winning idea to lose. Today I was leading the report of Flipkart losing 6,000, Amazon losing 6,087 crores. I don't have that kind of money. I don't think so. I invested more than 8,000 crores in the total business till date.
So are you suggesting that your model financially is a smarter model to follow than what some of the e-commerce giants are doing in this country, whether they're Indian or foreign owned or whatever?
I think people get valuation of things they don't understand. So I think e-commerce is not understood. And that's why they are getting valuation.
Please explain.
I think nobody understands that business. The more losses you make, more valuation you get. I can't understand that.
But it's about customer acquisition, and you have to admit that they are doing a reasonable job of
acquiring customers. If I look at the sales of Flipkart today, I saw the report. They did around 30,000 crores of business, out of which 65% of the business came out of electronics and mobile phones. So that's 20,000 crores gone. Now balance 10,000 crores of business they did. I think 90% of business must have been done at 40 to 60% discount.
You're complaining about discounts?
I'm not complaining at all.
I remember what Sabse Acha Wednesday. What was the first one that you did?
I think it's not about...
Sabse Sasta Wednesday.
I wish and hope we had that kind of money to do Sabse Acha then in a different way.
You did.
But we never...
Some might say
we never sold below cost price, ever.
Are you sure about that?
I'm 110% sure about it.
1,000% sure you never sold below cost price?
1,100% sure about it, except in the last 2 years.
Except in the?
Last 2 years.
In the last 2 years, you've been selling below cost price.
We are using the digital medium to give discounts in our wallets.
So you're also selling below cost price.
But I'm not giving discounts cash in the end of the customer.
Sir, if you hold your ear this way or the other way, it's still the same thing.
I think the market scenes have changed. Everybody's getting into predatory pricing. You have to come up. We have come up with our wallet now. We give money in the wallet. But money in the wallet is again going to come to be spent with us only because it's a closed loop wallet.
Correct. And many of these e-commerce platforms are doing very similar strategies.
Nobody has
offering you cashback and things like that.
Everybody has an open loop wallet. Every one of them. You can use that money anywhere. In our case, you can use money only in the format in which you got
what if I was to argue, Mr. Biyani, that there was a time when there were such few players in modern retail that there was very little competitive pressure on you. Today, it's the customer who's king, and eventually, it is the foreign giants or the large Indian e-commerce platforms that may be using deep discounting to force players like you to also start thinking of more aggressive pricing.
Fair enough. So
till now,
we have to respond.
Till now, you were sanguine. It's competition that's forced you to do it.
I'm not a purist. I think I will respond to the way consumers want it.
So far, you didn't do it because...
I didn't have the money to do it. I created a wallet to do it now. I was smarter enough to create a wallet so that the money is spent again with me only.
Correct. I'm sure many of them also have similar...
I don't think so. Nobody has that model. Again, I'm reiterating that.
Nobody has a wallet like yours?
Nobody has a wallet which is a closed loop wallet.
Okay. Nobody has a wallet like Mr. Biyani's. All right. So your version of e-commerce is what?
You are talking of innovation. I'm talking of innovation.
Yes. In innovation, you're about to launch Tathastu. You just told me outside as we were walking.
Tathastu is launched.
Okay, it's launched. So is that the articulation of your e-commerce vision? What will it do? What will it achieve? How is it different?
Personally, the way I look at e-commerce is e-commerce came in a different era. And they were viewed as something which is away from offline retail to online retail. I believe over a period of next 2-3 years, offline, online are converging. So it will be one. It's a customer should decide whichever way they want to shop. In our model of retail, customer can decide whether he wants to buy through technology, wants to order through a technology-enabled ordering system, or he wants to come to the store and order. So let the customer decide whichever way he wants to shop.
Of course, and the omni-channel has been a strategy with almost all the large players in almost in the large country. The word is old economy.
Yes, I think there's a new economy emerging, and that's what we are
So
going
what
to be
is the new economy word for omni-channel?
You imagine we'll deliver, you think we'll deliver.
So you're rewriting the e-commerce language, is it?
I think we cannot win in that language, so we are changing that language.
Okay, but to get serious,
I was serious till now, so...
How is Tathastu different in what it hopes to achieve
I think
from what any online platform offers as an aggregation of goods and services?
I think the problem with any successful people in the world is they look at a reference point. I don't have a reference point. Tathastu doesn't have a reference point.
But it's not dissimilar from what is already out there.
It doesn't have a reference point. You are comparing me with e-commerce pure online players, which I am not.
Well,
Tathastu is not pure online play. Tathastu is using data to do business. We call it D2B. We missed the bus on internet commerce, so we are getting into data-driven commerce now.
So you're admitting you missed the bus on internet
I missed the bus, and luckily I missed the bus because I never had the money to...
You just said you missed the bus on
I had no money to ride into and get a ticket to that bus.
Okay, for whatever reasons, but you missed the bus on internet commerce.
I admitted that.
Okay. One of your closest competitors in the domestic landscape, at least, Reliance Retail, is also readying its e-commerce foray, as people call it, right? So how do you hope to go up against the deep-pocketed, Ambani venture?
I believe India needs many, many retailers. And it's great that Indian retail companies are thinking about...
No, you promised me no politically correct answers.
I'm not giving you... I'm meaning well, because I believe India needs many retailers. India will be having $80 billion of new consumption every year, and somebody has to take that share.
Sure. And better both of you than the Amazon and the Walmart-owned Flipkarts, is it?
I think you feel pride that there are companies thinking about it, and they are Indian companies.
Okay. How will you differentiate yourself from, let's say, what a Reliance Retail would, has to offer? Or how do you think that these could be different offerings? Or do you think you will all converge towards very similar looking models at the end of the day?
I don't agree, because I believe in consumer business, consumer decides everything. I think it's like there are so many producers who produce a movie, and every Friday some gets a chance to release it, and consumer decides whether they want to watch it or not. So there'll be many, many players in this business. They will open their stores, they will open their products to the consumers, and consumers will decide where they are shopping.
I'm not denying that at all, but clearly you will have to create some sort of differentiated presence. So I'm just asking...
I think we have a differentiated presence because we are managing a value chain.
Sure. Do you believe that is what distinguishes you from Reliance Retail?
We are managing a much larger value chain than probably anybody else in the world.
So you believe that's what distinguishes you, let's say, from a competitor like Reliance Retail?
I think anybody else in the world.
Okay. Are you at all, in a sense, intimidated by the money power that group does bring to the table?
I think a leader will always be a leader, and we have never claimed to be a leader ever. So I think we are good to be a follower and big to be a second or a third player.
Okay, that's a candid conversation. What do you think will be the future? Let's say, look 10 years from now, and I'll ask you this question repeatedly through the conversation. Look 10 years from now and tell me, what do you imagine to be the most successful, both from a customer innovation point of view, a customer interface point of view, and a financial point of view, most successful retail business model in India?
I think anybody who can manage the largest value chain and operate at the lowest cost. And I think he will be the winner in the long term.
And when you look at customer trends that are shifting, right? I've been reading a bunch of material, not just in anticipation of this interview, but otherwise also because this is an interesting marketplace. Where do you see the biggest trend shifts coming in the next 2, 5, 10 years? I'm not talking 3 months, 6 months,
I think the biggest trend shifts are coming in terms of predicting, what you call the predictive science.
So you're talking about big data?
I'm talking about big data, machine learning, AI, and...
those are tools to understand what's happening.
But those are tools which will help you to do business on the platform which you have built. Okay, so I think we have built a platform of manufacturing, building brands, retail space, supply chain, I think all these platforms, if you use AI and ML, I think you will be the fastest, your velocity will be great, the value chain which you are managing is fantastic, and you'll be able to bring down your cost of doing business.
Okay, I was reading a UBS report, and there were two things that report said that struck me, and I thought that I'd sort of bounce this off you and see how you absorb this. They expect a gradual migration over the next 3 to 5 years from discount retailers to outlets offering better customer experience. There's nothing in here that's, sort of rocket science, but this is where they expect the Indian retail experience to shift. High-end consumers with incomes of 10 lakhs and more per annum in terms of household income will contribute to the highest delta growth in modern retail. Where are you seeing the maximum pockets of growth in India? How are you hoping to be able to cater to that growth? Can you give us some insight on how or where you see the market move?
So if you look at fashion business, I believe the ASP of a garment is coming down. It's not going up. If you look at food business, the trend is there are a lot of new categories which are emerging, and consumers are experimenting and trying out with a lot of new products and categories. And so in fashion business, it's all about the speed at which you sell your product, the velocity. And it's earlier the whole margin systems were adding up cost multiplied by X amount, and that's your MRP. I think things are changing. The velocity at which you get a product is the way you price a product.
A bit like the Zara model?
I think velocity is the new benchmark of doing business. The speed at which you sell a garment, the rate of sale. I think that's changing the way one does business. And we believe technology enables you to do something in that way.
Give me an illustration of how you've been able to deploy that as a strategy in your fashion business.
Any product where the stock turns are 6 times a year or 8 times a year, multiplied by the margins. If you are operating at, earlier we were operating at 60% margin and doing 8 stock turns, your velocity or the return on stock employed was 480%. I think you can easily manage it at 240%. It's very profitable at 240%. You can reduce the prices by probably 20% if your velocity is very high.
So you're, in fact, in some sense, countering what this report seems to suggest, that consumption will move towards the middle of the market as and not pool around the discounted end.
I think especially in clothing business, it's moving more and more towards fashion.
Okay.
So if your fashion is not good, nobody is going to buy your product.
So that you're talking about design and style.
It's design as well as your ability
brand?
to understand, interpret. Brand is not getting as much as value as what it used to be getting earlier.
Okay. What about food? What about home?
In food, again, there are a lot of new categories which are trying to be a part of the consumer. And so there is a product like a Greek yogurt to a cold pressed juice to a lot of new categories.
But that's still very urban high-end, right?
But still, it's beginning to happen. But we are seeing trends emerging in a lot of small towns where people are now wanting to measure the freshness of a product. Even a detergent, people look at a manufacturing date. So I think people don't want to buy products which are going to be away from the manufacturing date. People are looking at freshness of a product. So supply chains will become very important.
And that's where you hope to be able to
I think if you're managing entire value chain, your supply chain management can get more freshness than anybody else.
Okay. One can argue this in terms of, specialization, but I won't keep going on and on about the same point. I think one of the most interesting experiments I've seen happen at the Future Retail Group is what you've done with Easy Day, right? You're about 1,000 stores right now. It's a membership culture that's come to India for the first time. I haven't seen any large player experiment with this, though of course in the US, Walmart did that with Sam's Club, etc. What has this experiment been like? What were you betting on? And has it sort of delivered what you hoped it would? Not just in terms of data, but customer loyalty as well.
I think our ambition is to open 10,000 small stores within 2-kilometer radius of a
1,000 right now.
I would be at around 1,300, 1,400, adding up 2 to 3 stores a day, trying to add up, let's say. But
and essentially this is a sort of a quasi-franchise model. You don't own all of these stores. It's a networked model, right?
Except for Nilgiri's 180 stores, everything is owned by us and run by us.
All of them? All 1,000?
All of them. So I think we believe this will be our fastest model for growth. This is a membership model. We want 1 square foot. If a store is 3,000 square foot, we want 3,000 members. And we want them to frequent our stores more than 50 times a year. And once they start coming to us, we read some patterns and want to have a deeper relationship with our members, selling them fashion, selling them home products, giving them finances, and having a deeper relationship with them.
So can you talk me through the finances of each of these stores? Because traditionally one would turn around and look at you. You started with Big Basket. Yeah, you started with Big Bazaar. You were tagged as the big box retailer in India. You've been moving into smaller and smaller sizing now for many, many years. I'm just curious to know how that's changed the financial strategy of your group as well.
I think if you have a 3,000 square feet store, 4,000 SKUs, customer visiting you, I think our loyalty is around consumers who shop with us regularly are around 72 to 74% of members who shop with us more than 43 times a year. That's the data.
More than 43 times a year.
Right now. But we have started a unique program on Pani Ke Baav Doodh that is getting the frequency up to 53 times. And I believe it can go up to 70, 80 times. So that's something which we are working on. So we are looking at data to deeply engage with our consumers.
So this is also where you have the loyalty program running, right? You have Savings Club that runs here across almost 800, 900
That's the program
stores.
through which we have members.
Sorry?
That's the way we are looking at membership. Every members shop with us, so we have data on that.
So, but have you rolled out Savings Club across all 1,000 stores?
Except for 300, 400 stores, we have rolled it out everywhere.
Okay, what is the financial outcome of this store compare with, let's say, any of your other stores? So, if you're saying the average size is about 3,000 square feet, how do you determine whether these stores are turning out to be a more profitable strategy than, let's say, some of the larger formats?
I think this is the future because we can open more number of stores and we can...
Yeah, but give me numbers to show how this is succeeding for you.
I think that's our strategy because we are a FMCG company and we want distribution for our brands. We have more than 40 factories. We are into dairy, we are into bakery, we are into biscuits, we are getting into laundry.
Give me numbers for the stores and how they're doing versus the large formats.
I think it is very independent. You can't compare it with large format. Large format is more of non...
Okay, what would you compare it with?
I think smaller stores will become much larger than our larger store footprint in the next 3 years.
In terms of footprint?
In terms of the volume of business we do and the value of business we do.
Yes, but if you were to compare financial outcomes between your small store strategy and large store strategy, how would it compare?
Our large stores makes a lot of money and our small stores are not profitable yet.
And when do you hope that will change?
We expect in next 2 years they will start throwing money.
So, and yet you're planning to scale from 1,000 to 10,000.
We have profitability of our large stores which funds our small stores right now.
Okay. This small store concept, at one time I remember you talking to me and also saying that you might look to want to franchise or you might look to want to network a large number of Kirana stores if you didn't want to actually have to invest in building out the physical presence.
I think with the launch of Tathastu, you'll see a lot of digital distribution ideas on which you are working. There is a particular distribution idea which you have started in 8 states, is Aadhaar wholesale centers, which creates Aadhaar Mitras, the franchises. This is a part of Future Consumer to build their distribution.
Okay.
And we believe that's a distribution model which we are building up with a retailer, which is a franchise in towns and population which are less than 50,000.
Okay. You're a man of many ideas. Every time I meet you, you're throwing a new idea at me. Today it's Tathastu. The last time we spoke, it was something else. You've gone from being big box to now small stores. You've gone from being a retailer to now an FMCG company. But yet, you get criticized quite a bit for the financial performance of your group. And your metrics don't necessarily all compare very well with some of your competitors, right? So if I was to compare it with, let's say, DMart, or if I was to compare it in some cases with customer acquisition, some of the e-commerce players, you don't always fare in the top numbers. And I can give you some examples in terms of, whether it's financial examples like receivables or it's other issues like margins. How do you explain the coming together of this many idea strategy of yours and the inability to strike the kind of financial success you want?
I think, firstly, we are accused of doing many things which is correct. And I don't think that will stop because we believe we have to respond to the markets which are also changing. Secondly, we are housed ourselves in multiple companies. And because every idea is an idea which cannot be done in one single organization because you need different skill sets, different culture to make it happen. So that's another thing. Thirdly, if you look at together as a group, I think we have some interesting thoughts and interesting ideas on financial parameters also, which are very, very interesting. So if you start comparing apple to apple, I think we will score much better. But unfortunately, to understand us itself is difficult. And we believe that's a problem which we have created. And those who understand us, they understand us, and they are deeply involved with us.
Okay, fine. Let me use one metric that's easy for everybody to understand. Same store sales growth, right? You range between 5 to 11,
No,
12%.
I think
you have competitors that go all the way up to 20% over the last several quarters.
I think that it's a way of measuring same-store sales growth. I believe our same-store sales growth probably is the best ever for us.
So there's nothing wrong with your numbers, it's the way people measure it.
It's not about measuring apple to apple compare. There's no issue at all. I think Big Bazaar is now growing at nearly 16 to 18%. Some quarter here, some quarter there. Brand Factory is growing at that chain is growing at 46%. Central is growing at 18%. So I think we have an interesting, and the small stores, I think the last quarter was 28%, but overall the growth will be, I think our best has started now.
When you look back, I know you keep saying you're not a man of regrets, but do you believe that you could have done any part of this retail expansion better?
We have made mistakes and mistakes and mistakes.
So give me, what would you identify as your worst mistake ever?
I think we got into so many categories of business.
But you just told me that was your big redeeming strength.
I think now I've decided not to move out of food, fashion and home. Earlier we were into multiple categories. So I think we have done enough mistakes. We didn't have that kind of bandwidth then, we didn't have kind of resources then, and we have done too many things too early.
I have one more final question on FDI policy. We've seen that, the changes that have taken place over the last several months. I won't debate the policy in itself. I know what you have had to say about it, saying why can't India produce, the next Alibaba or the next Amazon? Why do we have to rely on foreign players coming in here? And I'm sure that's going to get a resounding cheer from the audience here at, at the summit. So whilst this policy may be good for domestic players like you and Reliance, it might also have meant bad news for your deal with Amazon, right?
I somehow believe that everybody has found a way around of that policy. So everybody is back to normal. It took them 45 days.
So that means your deal with Amazon is also
back on the table? I'm not saying anything. I never said then also. I'm not saying anything now also. But everything is back on track. No, whatever you want to read out of that.
Everything including your deal with Amazon?
Everybody has created a workaround.
Well, that was expected, right? They created a workout the last time around. So your deal with Amazon is back on track?
I never said I'm in a transaction with them, nor I'm saying it now.
So if Amazon was to invest, would it be Amazon Tathastu?
I don't want to talk about any investments on this forum.
All right. Okay. I think we've reached the end of our time. So thank you very much for being a wonderful participative audience. But more importantly, let me thank Mr. Biyani. None of us has the same standard measure of success. But the one thing I can say about him in every conversation is I learn a new idea and he never stops trying. So a big round of applause for that.
Wow, that was an amazing interview. So, isn't it, dear students? Okay, Mr. Kishore Biyani, okay, literally created a battlefield on the stage. Okay, so I would just summarize some of the major points that he addressed. Managing value chain of future retail, why future retail is led to e-commerce, predatory pricing by competitors, competition from Reliance Retail, big trends in retail, upper middle class consumer category spend, easy day model of future group, and Aadhaar franchisee model. Okay, so that interview is an excellent one. So which brings you to the context of corporate world. Okay, it helps you to connect the subject, okay, with what exactly is happening in the world of retailing in India. So definitely, I hope that it will trigger a lot of interaction. So I'm very eagerly waiting for the interaction from students by way of value addition or by way of questions. Thank you.